Blue Lock Japan vs Nigeria is a long-awaited beginning to the U20 World Cup tournament, and to an extent, it did not disappoint. Despite Blue Lock crushing Nigeria, this was meant to act as a benchmark and proof that Jinpachi Ego's philosophy towards soccer paves a road for Japan to dominate on a world stage. At this game's core is the message to always keep improving and understanding who you want to be curious about yourself, to never be satisfied, and to strip yourself of limits, resulting in an insatiable appetite, adaptation, change, and interest in yourself. These simple concepts define this piece of Blue Lock's story, which grants not only a full picture, but also an understanding of what is necessary to become the world's best. The preamble to this game was set up for a few things. First was Isagi's newly transformed ego and Baratsuda's deal with Nagi and Sei. But Baratsuda will come later, so let's begin with Isagi first. From a strategic standpoint, Isagi is meant to be Blue Lock's #1 striker. His ability to incorporate everyone's strengths and weaknesses into multi-stage plans towards advantageous positions was bound to make him Blue Lock's nucleus. Rin did something similar during the selections and NEL with how dominant of a presence he is. The line between these two approaches was a matter of respect. Rin's came from a place of overwhelming control, whereas Isagi's came from a place of curiosity and understanding. Now he's demanding his teammates meet his standards more directly and a bit more coldly. His usage of the word tepid and annoyance at Karasu's interjection paints that picture perfectly. He wants his teammates to bend to his expectations more blatantly, which begins with Hiori. These two's relationship is built off expectations given, received, and reciprocated. Isagi's 3 biggest plays in the NEL were made because of Hiori's passes and his vision. To Isagi, for his quote-unquote buddy to not push himself to be one of the strongest pieces on the field is tantamount to conceding victory at a critical moment. Perfect practice makes perfect performance. Excuses about asking for too much or not wanting to push himself too hard before a game are nothing but excuses. It's all or nothing. His obsession with victory and proving his existence is not through a vision for only himself to live up to, but for everyone else to live up to. He's placing everyone else's life on the line as well, exactly how he did against Rin. By forcing his ideals onto others, his personality begins to mesh with Rin's a little. Instead of being a destroyer, he's a manipulator. Isagi empowers them to strengthen himself. His goal to be the world's best, in order to do that, he has to face every egotist at their peaks and surpass them. He can't do this alone, so he needs everyone else to reach his level and ambitions. Friend or foe, he critiques, advises, and questions other players' way of thinking to understand how best to exploit their talents for his ideals or goals to place himself and Japan on top. When placed against Nigeria, we see this exact thing in full effect. Nigeria was, to put it nicely, underdeveloped. Onazi couldn't lead his team to any sort of win because he relies too much on others' creativity. His physicality doesn't inspire change like Rin through a dominating presence, and his brain doesn't spark new ideas like Isagi's. So Nigeria's attack options suffered greatly. It also didn't help that he was the only real scoring threat on his entire team. Kuso was definitely a great offensive support with huge potential, especially since he bypassed Reo, Karasu, Raichi, and Auryu during his last run. Yet, his endpoint will always be obvious unless given the ball at a moment's notice. Onazi can only do so much. He is always going to be swarmed, cutting off his options and forcing a dead shot course almost every time. Nigeria is a one-route team, which is why their decision to pursue individual goals fails miserably. Blue Lock's dedication to its evolution made it near impossible for them to lose this scenario, which Nigeria understood. However, in attempting to adapt a similar playstyle, their lack of familiarity and individual identity made egotistical play virtually impossible for them to perform correctly. No better is this pointed out than by Onazi, who was focused on ensuring he played with his found family. Kuso said it best. Their dream went from win the World Cup to be together. While positive and capable of inspiring his team with optimism and hope, Onazi's awakening is ultimately rejected by an overwhelming force that exposed who he was deep down, effectively stripping him of all of that optimism and hope in one fell swoop. Onazi possesses a restrictive world ego type. To support this claim, it's important to take note of Kuso's language when he makes his pass. My shining hope, let me see you reach the world with this shot. Upon initial reading, a reasonable assumption is that Kuso's the one with the world ego type, and it's clearly geared towards that with this statement. But it also seems to be a little bit of a reflection of Onazi's beliefs too, I think. Kuso, Onazi, Bello, and Obo Abona were all orphans who only had one another. They've probably lived through a lot of hardship to get to the point they are now, where they're representing their country on a world stage. To score against a rising star like Blue Lock Japan would announce to the world that Nigeria can compete with the best of them, with the rising stars. There's no doubt Onazi would want to overcome this hill for not only himself, but his family too, elevating everyone to a world stage level, or at least put them on a radar, if only for a moment. Moreover, Kuso has known Onazi since they were kids, and understands how to bolster his possibilities. The restrictive part of his ego is connected to his awakening of Predator Eye, a trademark of the ego type, which may have roots in his upbringing as an orphan too, considering, again, well, he's probably had a pretty hard life as one. Although this game was a complete stomp in Blue Lock's favor, it still delivers an entertaining match. Nigeria lacked a true game plan, knowledge of all of Blue Lock's options, and proper understanding of Onazi's talents to use them effectively. As stated before, this match was a benchmark, a test to see if Blue Lock could perform together again regardless of time apart. Blue Lock's coordination across each goal is a representation of that teamwork reminiscent of U20. Boccia sets the standard by leveraging his dribbling style to use Rin and Isagi as bait for the first goal, embracing his freedom and again embracing that originality. Reo follows this up by using his copies to contrast Boccia's originality but simulate his unpredictable playstyle to score. Rin willingly coordinated with Isagi to run downfield, then used a control form of his destroyer mode to outdo Isagi's predictions. He dropped his obsession to get stronger, similar to Reo's decision to leave Nagi behind to reach his own peak as of this game. Finally, you have Isagi desiring a route for more growth by going for a fourth and final point. In his own way, Isagi replicates Rin's decision to throw away a scoring opportunity in lieu of what'll make him stronger. Not being challenged enough will never get him anywhere. There's also a moment where Isagi says he's no longer satisfied with Ego's expectations, which is a natural progression of their interaction during the U20 match all those chapters ago. He no longer needs to rely on Jinpachi's input. All he needs is interest in himself and a love of soccer to reach higher. In the end, it's no surprise Blue Lock Japan would win. It was pretty dumb to not expect it. Regardless, I'm a fan of the game overall, but I do have my gripes with it. First is obviously the typical striker problem. Isagi and Rin should not be stopping shots. Aiku, Nico, and Aryu are literally right there. It makes no sense why Nico or Aryu are not blocking Kuso's shot in this panel, because we basically never see Aryu or Nico that much during this game after their first major stops. Nico in particular is supposed to have somewhat of a similar level of vision to Isagi, or at least it feels like that was a build-up for him during the NEL, so why not have him helping Aiku narrow Onazi's shot options instead of Isagi? It genuinely doesn't make much sense, if any at all. Another issue is the constant compliments or shocks with Isagi during this game. Kuso thinks about this guy more than he thinks about Onazi, I think, during the entire match, which is kind of crazy because this was like a team effort to expose a lot of Nigeria's weaknesses, not just Isagi making certain coordination. Like, these were individual talents who were doing these things to Nigeria, and yet Kuso can only talk about Isagi doing something, or the coach for Nigeria talking about Isagi doing something, and it was just way too much for the game, in my opinion. There's also a problem with Nigeria player representation. Several named characters barely have any standout moments aside from Onazi and Kuso. None of Nigeria's players show any sparks of genuine potential beyond what is given to us. Granted, you could choke it up to it's the first match, it's meant to be a landslide, and it doesn't matter because we all know that Japan and France are going to get out of the group stage to go on to the real tournament, which are definitely fair takes, and I couldn't agree with any of you guys more. Lastly, predictability hinders this match's perception. Going on websites that allow comment sections or reading up on this match wherever people can have discourse, you're bound to run into when will this match end type of comments after each chapter released. To mitigate this issue a little, I think Nigeria should have made some sort of appearance before to gain some interest from readers, or had a scenario like Nigeria defeating Japan in the elimination stage of the previous World Cup would have made it much more emotionally charged by proving Japan has definitely changed and grown since then. Although that's what the NEL in this match is meant to say, it could have sparked a little more discourse than fatigue when things began to run a little too long. I'm not exempt from this because I was also feeling a little fatigue as well with each chapter being released. So to make up for this match, we were given a bit more about Nagi's return before the game, and the new Gen 11 make their appearances after the game to set up for Blue Lock's road ahead. From these brief moments, two things stuck out. One is Hugo's reveal as a new Gen member from France, and Nagi's choice of words. First, Hugo seems to be Isagi's big challenge, aside from Charles and Loki, for the next round against France. He'll probably be either a defender capable of stopping Isagi and Rin, or an offensive midfielder who will crack Blue Lock strategies on both sides of the ball, all the while providing strong pushes alongside Loki and Charles whenever possible. His commentary on Isagi being quote-unquote unsuitable is an interesting line of dialogue, but until we get more information as to what he means by this, we'll just have to wait and see. To close things off, let's talk about Nagi and Barasuda's offer. Regardless of what Nagi's comeback means for Blue Lock stakes, or whether it's a good decision or not, Nagi's story has always been partially about being an exception. Soccer itself never fired him up. The challenge, thrill, or interest in it was due to everyone else who made him believe in the fire he felt. Only after losing everything he had did he understand his truth. For that reason alone, he's meant to oppose everything Blue Lock represents. Nagi was talented without any interest in soccer. Everyone else who played had a vested interest in the sport and pursued a dream of being better at it. Yet he survived until talent alone could not and would not allow him to progress. He was loyal to a system meant to strengthen dreamers who could transform, but also would pitch those same dreamers if they failed. His progress was a result of exploitation and luck. Nagi's talents again carried him. Hints of his fire appear here and there, but nothing continuous. So now he's here to destroy what Blue Lock has been for everyone else. He's a glitch in its system. Now he possesses an ego and a body to take a second chance for himself. Or at least we'll have to see when he gets there. To talk about Barasuda for a moment, he's a standard capitalist mindset, indiscriminately taking advantage of talented youth to grow his wealth. While Jinpachi made Blue Lock based on his selfish reasons, he never cared about money. He only ever cared about creating the world's best striker. The way he was going to get to that ideal striker just so happened to be a money printing machine. That's all. Barasuda offers a blatant devil's contract to someone who couldn't accept his loss and was now hyped up by others who wanted to play soccer more than he did. Nagi and Barasuda's deal is built to exploit talent, which is why he is one of the lowest of the lows in this story. Furthermore, with someone of his mindset, we can only imagine what kind of training he'll put together for this new Blue Lock to get the biggest payout. As mentioned before though, we'll have to just wait and see. Unfortunately, that's all I have for you guys today. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Please stay safe out there, and of course, as usual, please have yourselves a damn good one. I'll see you all next time.